All right, welcome to 11:30 the Tiger Podcast. I'm your man. I'm Dylan Marsh. I'm joined with JD. Today we are going to have a complete college football preview for you. We're going to be talking about the Power 5 conference winners and who we think are going to make it to the college football playoff. We're going to have our Heisman finalists. We're going to have just all the news going around, especially with Nick Saban, Alabama, and how Nick Saban's kind of being Nick Saban. So we're going to go ahead and start off with that. We're going to talk about what's going on with Maurice Smith wanting to transfer from Alabama and play for his former defensive coordinator, Kirby Smart, at Georgia, but Nick Saban was like, no, you can't go. So what do you think about this? What do you think of just Nick Saban saying, no, you cannot go? Basically because I'm saying I guess there's still bad blood for Kirby Smart taking a job in the middle of the college football playoff.
Well, honestly, I'll put it this way. I think that throughout all of college football, it doesn't matter if you're in the SEC or you're in Division II, I believe that when you sign that contract, you should honor that contract and stay with that team till you graduate.
That's the thing. He is a graduate transfer.
Once you graduate, though, I believe you have the right to go anywhere you want. If you want to follow your defensive coordinator because he goes to a opposing team in the conference, you should be allowed to go there. That's just what I feel, but I also see why Saban was blocking it, even though today he did reverse it. I think that was also to do with the publicity he was getting around the nation for trashing the kid's locker.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He trashed your kid's locker.
Took everything out and threw it in the trash can. You didn't see that?
No, I did not. Wow. That shows a whole other side of Nick Saban we didn't see.
It might not have been physically Nick Saban doing it.
But still, he's the man in charge. He knows what's going on. Yeah, but Smith, he graduated, and like I said, Kirby Smart left Alabama to go be the head coach of Georgia after Mark Richt got fired. With that, he also took another defensive assistant, Mel Tucker. He went with Smart to Georgia. This Smith, he really hasn't been a huge player for Alabama. He's had 15 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and a fumble recovery in 15 games, which is pretty good for 15 games, but it's not an Alabama caliber stat because of course he didn't start with those type of numbers. So, but why would Saban put up a huge fight to keep him, even though he wasn't a huge product of their so-called best defense ever?
Well, if you think about it, Saban probably knows what he's doing. I mean, just look at the guy's resume. He's won 5 national championships. He recruits these players. He knows who they are, their personalities and everything. And they played Georgia this year. It's at home, but if he goes and transfers to Georgia and he's allowed by the SEC to play, that's a weapon that Kirby Smart could use against his former coach.
Yeah, but again, he wasn't a huge factor, and as you said with his resume, look at the past of how Alabama doesn't even reload; they kind of just fall in, kind of with their recruiting. And
you mean rebuild, not rebuild, reload?
Yeah, but not even reload. It's more like
it's just next man. It's like the New England Patriots, next man up.
As I've been saying, I know it makes me sound like Nick Saban's like just straight up saying, no, you can't go because I don't like Kirby Smart. Nick Saban's using the role of the SEC rule that has been flip-flopped over the past couple of years of graduate transfers having to sit out a year or, necessary paperwork, stuff like that. And Saban's first blocked it because he said, we want to honor the SEC code for transferring. So, but knowing that it changed, I guess he's saying, I still want to honor what the SEC has been wanting to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but it also, I still have a feeling that Saban wants to control the situation.
Yeah, well, it's Nick Saban. He thinks he controls the SEC, which he probably does.
I mean, yeah, he does. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, he's the one who brings in all the money.
For sure.
But Nick Saban said, it's beyond us. We really don't need to talk about that anymore. I don't have any other comments to make about it, which is a complete Saban comment. Just like I've always said, they're the Patriots of the college football world. They got a coach that doesn't like the press, and whenever he gets asked a question he doesn't want to talk about, he just shuts them down right there and gives them the same answer over and over, just like Belichick does. So, with that being said, we're going to move on to LSU's golden boy, Leonard Fournette. And with the video coming out of him slapboxing, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for one, you think it's bad right off the bat whenever you see breaking news, TMZ video of Leonard Fournette fighting another teammate in the parking lot of Tiger Stadium. Automatically, you're thinking, this is bad news. It's going to hurt maybe. But if you really look at it, if you really think about the situation, and from what you've read about Leonard Fournette, he seems like a class act. And honestly, from what his teammates and Les Miles have said about him, I believe that it was just slapboxing. It wasn't fighting. And I strongly believe that there's no way he would fight a teammate.
Yeah, same here. With that being said, though, being in locker rooms, even in high school, I know for a fact you did. I did a couple times with you and then also with some other friends. Who hasn't slapboxed in their life?
You get cooped up in that locker room and testosterone rolls around. They want to see who's the bigger, badder dude around the locker room. And that's how you settle it without throwing fists.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a playful fight that no one really gets hurt in. You might have a little welt on your cheek, and that's about it.
Yeah, but here's a thing I have a problem with this is, yeah, they were fighting or slapboxing. I'm sorry, they were slapboxing in the video. Like you were telling me before the show, that the video shows it looks like they're fighting because they are so athletic and big and fast. It looks like they're throwing punches, and they're not really smiling. They're not really, they're trying to focus. They're trying to show off a little bit. And but I guess LSU or maybe in his mind he thought it was right to apologize, but in a tweet, Fournette said, I would like to apologize to everyone, but we were not fighting. Just slapboxing, but again, I would like to apologize to everyone again. That tweet, it doesn't seem very sincere because I'm sure he knows that it was just messing around. But I'm sure LSU, to protect their image, and again, this is a story because football's still 21 days away.
19 days away.
19 days away, that we have nothing to look at besides this Alabama situation. It's over now since Saban released Maurice Smith. But now it's just a story for us to talk about until football finally starts. So I have a feeling, especially since it's TMZ.
Honestly, I view TMZ as people that have nothing in their lives but try to ruin athletes.
Well, yeah. Well, TMZ Sports.
TMZ Sports is what I meant by that. They always try to ruin people's lives in the athletic world. Because anything you see off a TMZ video is gonna bring bad publicity to that certain individual.
With all that aside, just to show, everyone knows Leonard Fournette's he's a big boy. He's a huge running back. Leonard Fournette is 6'1", 230 pounds. The offensive lineman, Garrett Brumfield, the person he was slapboxing, the offensive lineman is 6'3", 290 pounds. And Fournette is the running back who is 6'1", 230 pounds. How big was Derrick Henry? Do you remember?
6'4",
6'4". Wow.
I believe I'm correct on that. You can check you can check me on that.
Well, I'm not going to check you on that because I can tell and look at him.
I know for a fact he's 6'4".
Wow. SEC's got some running backs. But I feel like when he apologized, Leonard Fournette, I feel it's one of those, like I said, he was kind of forced to apologize. But why would you force Leonard Fournette for having fun? Because, okay, let me say something before you say something. This is LSU's star. This is the guy who's making them all this money. He's the favorite to win the Heisman. He is 20 years old, maybe 21. He's still a kid, and he has a daughter. He has a little girl at home. So whenever he's at football practice, he feels pressure to carry this team. Like he carried that dude over his back at Auburn. He has the pressure of being Leonard Fournette and showing out every game, like the first 5 games he did last year. What? He's trying to have some fun with his brothers.
Goes back to what I said. If it's a TMZ sports video, bad publicity comes out from it. And that is why the university more than likely forced him to
apologize
for it.
Yeah. All right. But
I mean, would you agree with me on that?
Yeah. Well, because they don't want to have the reputation, because LSU's been really good lately with not having any off-field issues. I think they've had one person arrested this offseason. That's it. LSU doesn't want to have to deal with I feel like they cleaned it up really well, media publicity department there, of not turning into a whole, of cleaning it up real fast to make sure it doesn't blow up out of proportion to where Les Miles would maybe have to discipline Leonard Fournette. Okay, here, take this from a coach's standpoint. Would you want your players doing that? Okay, but I know it's, running back and they're just having fun. But also, what if, let's just take it to a whole new level of thinking, especially like if you're a coach. What if he gets hit in the eye and it messes up his vision a little bit? Would you want your star player doing that?
Obviously not. I mean, who wants their star player getting poked in the eye?
Exactly. But,
But, I mean, also, you got to let the kids live a little bit, too, with there being all the pressure from how much college football has grown. I mean, honestly, it's getting covered more than NBA is.
Yeah.
So there's so much pressure. You got to let the kids live a little bit. But also, yeah, comes to a point where you have to sit your players down and tell them what they can and can't do outside of the locker room. I believe if they would have just kept this in the locker room, there probably wouldn't be any issues right now.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. All right, we're going to switch roles from LSU to a quarterback who transferred from the Big 12 to the SEC, who I'm really intrigued about talking about and also extremely interested just to see how well he does. But Trevor Knight, he was the starting quarterback as a freshman who basically just torched the Alabama defense in 2013 in the Sugar Bowl. He threw for he went 32 for 44, 348 yards, and 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception that was an incredible interception I really think it was Clinton Dix. So with that being said, but that was the high point of his career. That was his freshman year, and after that, he was just mediocre the next 2 years at OU because he couldn't beat out Blake Bell. That whole year, they switched between Trevor Knight and Blake Bell. And then the next year, he got beat out by Baker Mayfield, which is better for the Oklahoma Sooners. With him transferring, Bob Stoops not being a Saban, even though they're not in the same conference, but still getting rid of someone like that who I believe has a lot of talent. But how do you think he's going to do in the SEC against these SEC defenses? Well, even with his track record against Alabama.
I believe that Alabama game he played, just from the other games after that was honestly, I believe, a fluke game.
Oh, well, you can tell it was a fluke game.
It was a fluke game, and I believe that he might be in the right system, though. I think he will be what would you call it, mediocre for an SEC quarterback. He will get the job done enough at Texas A&M to remain the starter the whole season. But I don't see him leading them to an SEC West division championship.
Well, of course not, because you got to get past Bama and LSU.
But he's not going to put up those numbers against Alabama this year.
No. Like, his career stats over the past 3 years, 3,424 yards because he's never kept a starting job, 25 touchdowns, and 19 interceptions. And that's Big 12, which is, yes, it's a becoming feels like a pass-first league if you're not Oklahoma, is to spread the ball out, read option. But going to an SEC team, but it is Texas A&M who is, I would say, probably the team that passes the ball the most. But it is with Kevin Sumlin, the guy who knows quarterbacks. He's a guy who has polished quarterbacks really well. Yes, because it started with Johnny Manziel, but Johnny Manziel was just he knows quarterbacks.
Actually, I correct myself on that. He was the quarterback coach at Oklahoma when Sam Bradford was there.
Okay. With Kevin Sumlin already putting Trevor Knight as naming him the starting quarterback, what do you think that shows? Like he named him the starting quarterback before spring practice. What do you think that shows towards his confidence level? Do you think it's, just because he's seen him play, or do you think he knows he fits perfect, which I'm sure he thinks that? But with the Texas A&M offensive style, it's basically kind of like the Oklahoma offense that they've run. It's the pistol, it's the read option, it's the rollout passes. But Texas A&M, Trevor Knight didn't have the running game of OU that Baker Mayfield had with P. Ryan and Mixon. A&M seems to have that, and they have 5 of their top returning receivers next year, so it gives them targets to throw to. Do you think that's going to help, relieve some pressure off of him? Because at OU, it was basically take the game over because we really didn't have a run game.
Yeah, I believe that that just brings a point up. If you have a run game that is versatile in any level of football, you're going to be successful because you have to run the ball to set up the pass. Now, with that being said, yes, if A&M can run the football and be able to set up that pass, Trevor Knight could be very dangerous. Is that going to happen? Probably not, in my opinion.
All right, so let's get your final saying on this. Do you think Texas A&M gets more than 9 wins next year?
I would say they'll win 8 or 9 games.
Okay. How close do you think the LSU game is?
Is that in College Station this year?
Last game of the year at College Station.
I say LSU will probably win that game by 13 points.
That's it?
Yeah. Because it's 12th man, hostile environment for LSU. By that time, Trevor Knight could possibly stepped into a nice role and gotten really familiar with those receivers, build a lot of chemistry, and it could cause some trouble for that LSU defense, who is, if you look back at film, they are not very good against a quarterback that can somewhat move. And Trevor Knight's got a little bit of wheels.
As you can tell, but yes, he's had some knee issues, but it still hasn't really slowed him down. I think that they're going to upset someone, but not a big like they're not going to beat Alabama or LSU, but I think maybe Ole Miss. I think they'll.
I'm actually going
Ole Miss or Auburn. It's Auburn is their third game. It's at Auburn, and Ole Miss is actually at home.
I could actually see them upsetting Tennessee on the road, possibly.
No, Tennessee's at home.
Oh, it's at home?
Yeah.
I could see them beating Tennessee at home.
Why are people so big on the Volunteers this year?
Well, I mean, if you look back at it, last year, how many games did they lose last year? 4?
Yeah, they had 4 losses, and they won their last 6.
If you look at it, though, 3 out of those 4 losses, Oklahoma at home double overtime. Florida on the road lost on a touchdown pass from Will Greer with a minute 30 seconds left. At Alabama, they lose on a Derrick Henry run-in from 45 with 45 seconds left in the ballgame. They return Joshua Dobbs, their star quarterback, and their star running back, Hurd. Now, they're my favorite to win the East this year. And with all that talent coming back and that schedule they have Alabama at home, they have Florida at home. I believe that they can make a solid run, win 11 games, win the East, and possibly punch their ticket to that playoff this year.
So you're telling me you think Tennessee's going to might win the SEC?
I wouldn't put it past them.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. JD thinks Tennessee's going to win the SEC. Bold prediction, but hey, it could happen.
That's not my prediction. I said it possibly happened.
That's what you said. We're here in just a minute. We're going to get into our predictions for the Power 5 conferences, which includes the SEC. We'll see what JD has to say about that. Let's go ahead and start the Power 5 predictions. Let's start with the ACC. I'll give my prediction. I think Florida State is going to win the ACC this year because Florida State with Dalvin Cook, Dalvin Cook is my dark horse for the finalists. We'll get to that in a minute. But Florida State, Jimbo Fisher still always in the top 5 recruiting, always in contention or in the talks of a college football playoff. And Florida State's one of those teams that's not going to go away for a while just because Jimbo Fisher and his recruiting and how he's a player's coach. Quarterback battle going on there is a question mark, but I think that they're definitely going to win the ACC in my eyes.
The ACC comes down to every year Clemson, Florida State. Now, Florida State has beaten Clemson for the past 4 times in Doak Campbell Stadium. And I think that they will prevail and make it a 5th time in a row that Florida State will beat Clemson. And I believe strongly they will win the ACC this year.
Yeah, I think Clemson, I think they just lost too much on defense. But Sean Watson surprised me last year. I think he could surprise us again this year. But another team to look out for, maybe not this year, but definitely in the upcoming years with Mark Richt going back to where he played college ball at Miami. I think he's going to resurge Miami into what maybe not what they once were, but definitely going to bring them up into maybe the top 10 every year.
I'm going to go ahead and make a bold prediction. I would not be surprised one bit if we see a Florida State Miami ACC championship game this year.
Yeah, I see. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens either. So let's move on to the Big 12. So go, JD. Who do you think is going to win the Big 12 this year?
Honestly, with Oklahoma's schedule, how rough it is with the road games in the Big 12, they got to go to Iowa State. They got to go to West Virginia in late November. They go to TCU after a bye week, after playing Ohio State. They got Texas. I just believe that with how much the Sooners have coming back this year, 9 return stars on offense, with only 6 return stars on defense, but 3 out of those 6 being starters in the secondary. I believe their defense will be strong enough to prevail them through that conference, and they will be victorious.
Victorious. So, JD thinks Oklahoma's going to win the Big 12. Before I get my prediction, I want to hear your thoughts on Oklahoma. And how do you think they're going to hold up against Houston? Because Oklahoma's track record with, not so big teams, but with a team that has an explosive player, like say Baylor and Robert Griffin III, with Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M, teams that aren't like great on defense, but they have an offensive player that just can't be stopped. And that's the case with Greg Ward Jr. in Houston. So who do you think Oklahoma is going to be able to handle that with their defense, with Eric Stryker, with Charles Tapper, and all those key defensive pieces out of Norman? How do you think they're going to hold up against Houston and against Ohio State?
I believe that Houston will be a huge test for Oklahoma. With Greg Ward Jr. and Javin Webb in the backfield, running the read option, running screens, I believe it's going to be a huge test. But I believe that Oklahoma's defense will hold up enough in that first game to give Oklahoma a 14-point win. And when they play Ohio State in Norman, I believe the defense will hold up enough and their offense will be so pumped up for that game that they will make huge plays with Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, along with Baker Mayfield, and they will win that game by 10.
10 points. All right. Well, I'm going to go with you on there. I think it's going to be Oklahoma. I think they're going to have a huge test with Ohio State, at least. I'm not sure Houston. I think the key piece of that is just keeping Greg Ward under control. And
if their defense is able to contain against Greg Ward Jr., then their defense should be fine.
Yeah. Well, that game is actually starring two Shreveport natives with Javin Webb from Evangel, who is, I think, going to be a senior this year at Houston, the running back for Houston, and then also a freshman who's going to get some playing time at OU from Calvary, Chauncey Sylvie. That's a game you should watch right there. It's going to be a good one.
That's actually Calvary versus Evangel, too.
That's Calvary versus Evangel right there. So you could see those two going face-to-face at some point. Well, now we're going to move on to the Big Ten. I'll give my prediction right there. I'm going to say between Ohio State and Michigan, I'm going to leave Michigan State out of this one. But I think out of Ohio State and Michigan, I think this is the year that Jim Harbaugh is going to start showing what he's been doing at Michigan with all of his recruiting. Like I said in my last college podcast, that Jim Harbaugh with what's going to be happening there with the whole Jordan Brand uniforms and everything Jim Harbaugh does in the offseason is solely based on recruiting and what I see, which is definitely what a coach should do. He's one of the players. He's one of the coaches that the players want to play for. I think he's one of the teams now. He's made Michigan one of the teams where every D1 prospect is looking for in the mail, just because he's just one of those coaches that's so much fun. Everyone wants to see him. Everyone wants to play for him. Everyone wants to do what they're doing. I'm saying Michigan beat Ohio State out for the Big Ten championship. I think that I'm not sure who they'll play. I say Michigan's going to win the Big Ten championship. What do you think?
All right, so I have three teams in mind. I got Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State, all in the same division. But looking at the schedule-wise and what everybody has coming back, you have Michigan, who's on the road at Michigan State and Ohio State. Ohio State has Michigan at home and is on the road at Michigan State. And Michigan State has both of them at home. And to me, honestly, Michigan State is, with Mark D'Antoni, I believe he's the most underrated coach right now in the Big Ten. And I believe he will have his team ready. Since he has Michigan and Ohio State at home, I say Michigan State repeats and wins the Big Ten this year again.
All right, Michigan State. Well, I think Michigan, I think their biggest test is going to be at Michigan State and then at Ohio State. But something just, I don't know, I just have a feeling that Jabril Peppers, he's
an animal.
Yeah. Well, after we get done with this, we're going to talk about our Heisman, who we think are going to be like, who do we think are going to be sitting in New York waiting to hear their name called. So now we're going to move on to Pac-12. So, JD, prediction, Pac-12.
Well, I'm going to go with the Stanford Cardinal as my winner because David Shaw is just crazy when it comes to recruiting. He always somehow he finds that 4.0 GPA crazy athletic kids to come play for him and pretty much he is the Alabama. They are the Alabama in the West Coast. They always find a way to ground and pound the ball and milk that clock and wear you down, and then they play stout defense, and I just see them prevailing in the Big 12 again the Pac-12 this year.
That's an excellent pick right there, but as hard as it is for me to go against Stanford and Christian McCaffrey, some odd reason I got a really good feeling about USC this year. USC has just been down for a couple of years, and I feel like if USC can put up a good fight against Alabama, I think that would put a huge mark on them this year to where in the Pac-12 they're going to put up a fight and that they're going to show. I think it's going to be a Cinderella year for USC this year. I'm not saying a college football playoff, but just a resurgence year for everyone to, basically remember that USC is not gone. And
I wouldn't put it past USC. They got a lot of young talent, and who knows, with that new coach they have, he could bring some life to their program. But I just believe that, like you said, Christian McCaffrey is an all-around Barry Sanders-esque player. I just believe he's going to be too much, and their defense is going to prevail like it normally does and lead them to a Pac-12 championship.
All right, now, this is the tough one for me. We're moving on to what everyone cares about, the SEC. Between Ole Miss, LSU, and Alabama, I'm going to go LSU Tigers just because I think this year, yes, Saban's a football genius, and scheming, and last year he shut down Leonard Fournette, but this year I just don't see it happening. This year I see, they have a better, more mature offensive line the Tigers have, and Leonard Fournette behind that really wanting to push himself because this is probably his last year in Baton Rouge. And with that being said, Bama is just, everyone's saying this is the best Bama team ever with that front seven. But I'm calling the Tigers winning the SEC against Georgia in the SEC championship.
You're saying LSU, Alabama?
Yes, sir.
Now, you're saying LSU, Alabama. I'm on the same boat with you when it comes to the West winner. Now, for LSU to be able to beat Alabama, this is the key component. Instead of trying to run the ball with Leonard Fournette up the middle, they need to be able to throw the ball down the field. That is how you beat Alabama. Look at what Texas A&M did with Johnny Manziel. Threw the ball down the field. What did Ohio State do in that playoff game? They threw the ball down the field. What did Oklahoma do? Threw the ball down the field. Look at how much success Clemson had against them in last year's national championship game. Threw ball down the field. Alabama had to kick an onside kick just to win that football game. If LSU changes their offense and just starts throwing the ball down the field against Alabama, LSU will be your West champions. But with history of me thinking that Les Miles still wants to control what's going on with that offense and pound the ball against Alabama, I still say Alabama beats LSU this year in Death Valley. Kind of like how it was back in 2014 on a last-second touchdown, and Alabama prevails against Tennessee in the SEC championship game and wins the SEC.
All right, but what we were saying with throwing the ball downfield, yes, that's what was needed to beat Alabama, but also you put all those teams together, and what's one common thing that they all had? They all had a great offensive line. With A&M, they had Jake Matthews. Oklahoma, I think they had 4 seniors on that line in 2013. And Clemson last year, you can see with Deshaun Watson's numbers, yes, he's freakishly talented, but you can't do that with a crappy offensive line. But so you have to give your quarterback time, which LSU last year was a young offensive line. And with a player like Brandon Harris, where they're asking him to stay in the pocket and throw, I think if he would to scramble a little bit more, kind of like a Manziel would have done, he's no Manziel. He can't run around like he could and like throw on the run. But we've seen how fast Harris can run. But I think this year, offensive line's more mature, stronger, older. I think this is going to be a great year for Harris. I think he's going to show everyone what he's capable of, and I think he will get some interest out of the NFL scouts. But I think that's one reason why I think LSU is going to win the SEC is because the play of Brandon Harris, and they get Malachi Dupree coming back, and then also Drake Davis, the freshman out of the IMG Academy in Florida. Him coming, who runs a 4.340, has the better hands in my eyes than Malachi Dupree in the highlights that I've seen. The quickness and how just athleticism gives him another target to throw to besides Malachi Dupree, because you didn't see him really throw to many other people besides Malachi last year. So I think that gives him another target. I think it's going to be a lot better year. And he has so much pressure, and he's of what Les Miles says, he's a workhorse. He's never thought about benching Brandon Harris even last year because of, even in the offseason, he's talked about how hard he's been working and going to camps, going to the Manning camp. And I just think Harris is going to have a great year this year, and I think they're going to spread the ball out, which is going to give Fournette more rushing room against Bama. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and get our college football playoff predictions. Who are your 4 teams in a playoff this year?
I have Alabama getting the 1 seed. I have Florida State getting the 2. I have Oklahoma getting 3. And I have Clemson getting the 4.
Okay. My order doesn't mean I think these teams are better than any others. I think this is just how the playoff committee is going to put it. I think it's going to be number 1 seed. I think it's going to be Oklahoma. The number 2 seed is going to be Florida State. The 3 seed is going to be LSU, and the 4 seed is going to be Michigan, because I think Michigan's going to have a lot of close calls in their season this year. They might lose a game, but playoff committee is not computers or numbers, so it's just basically who they think deserves to be there more based on wins, and they have a lot of road games that, if they win, they're going to be huge quality wins for the Wolverines. So that's my top 4. Like I said, I don't think those teams are better than all those other teams in that order. But so before we end our show, let's go ahead and give who do you think is going to be sitting in New York to hear the name called for the Heisman? And also, before you do that, who's your dark horse that no one sees coming, who you think is going to be in the talk closer to time for the Heisman to be announced?
All right. How many did you say we're doing? 4?
Yeah. Who's your dark horse, and who do you think is going to be sitting in New York? The 3 people.
3 people. Okay. My 3 people I think that will be in New York City will be Christian McCaffrey from Stanford, Deshaun Watson, Clemson, and Leonard Fournette from LSU. And my dark horse this year is Samaje Perine.
Well, who do you think is going to win it?
I mean, we all know who we all think is going to win it, and that's Leonard Fournette.
Yeah. All right, so I think my dark horse is Dalvin Cook from Florida State, the running back, who people are giving attention to, but everyone's more on the Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey wagon right now, talking, who's going to have a better year. But this team, they're having quarterback competition right now, which means they're going to give the ball to him a lot more. He's going to have some great stats, and I think, it's just, one of those football things is where if Florida State has a great year, Dalvin Cook will be sitting in New York. But my 3 who I think will be sitting there in New York this year is, like you said, Christian McCaffrey from Stanford, the all-around running back, Leonard Fournette from the Tigers, and Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma. And as much as I want to say Leonard Fournette's going to win the Heisman this year, which he really could, I'm not saying he's not, but it's just last year, not taking anything away from Derrick Henry, because he had a great year, but Christian McCaffrey just had such a remarkable year breaking the all-purpose yards record. And he, yes, Derrick Henry is 6'4", 245, bulldozing down the field. He had a great offensive line. McCaffrey would sit there, bust to the outside, juke, spin. He would even run some people over. He would catch screens where you'd only have 2 blockers and have to get past a whole entire defense after that. And I just feel that he was kind of robbed. But statistically, he definitely earned it.
Oh yeah, he definitely earned it. But this upcoming year, Leonard Fournette's going to make the trip to New York if he stays healthy, and Christian McCaffrey's going up for votes against the AP 2.0. And honestly, think about that. When I mean by AP 2.0, I mean Adrian Peterson version 2.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people forgot about Adrian Peterson after Derrick Henry because, that dude was a monster. But who do I think is going to win? I think that they will, if Fournette copies what he did last year, which was average, I think, close to or over 200 yards last year.
Oh, he was averaging around he was averaging about 200 yards a game last year.
If he does that and LSU gets the wins, beats Alabama, I think he walks away with the Heisman Trophy. But I would not be shocked if Baker Mayfield makes a case, because last year I think he was robbed not getting invited. Sometimes they invite 4 people, even just to be invited. Such an honor. And, I felt like he deserved to go just because of how he carried the Sooners on his back and just how, the team gathered around him. I'm really hoping Fournette wins just because he's such a good guy. Stayed out of trouble. He's very calm on the field. And, what I've heard, he's just a great guy, a hard worker. And Les Miles says he's probably one of the easiest stars he's ever coached. Like, he's the easiest one to coach. He always listens. But I feel like he deserves it the most off the field. We'll see. College football starts in 19 days. All right. Y'all get ready for that 19 days. Kick off to college football. All right. Thanks y'all tuning in. Have a good day.